live now. Alrighty.
Like right now?
Right now.
Oh.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me make sure it shows up first. I guess that matters. Because I set it to public. Yeah. It says end stream. Good. There it is. We got it. We're live. Welcome back to the Taylosive Talks podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We are live for the first time, I think, with Dad. Have we done this?
Not live.
Wow.
No, not live.
We've done a couple podcasts. One on the tech podcast way back.
Way back.
And then we did a couple here. And those were well received. People were always love hearing you and your experience.
You like me. You really, really like me.
Yeah, they do.
They like Drew.
And they like seeing where I came from, I think. It gives them a bit more background of I think that was one of the common comments on the first big podcast we did was, I see where Drew gets his persona or his stage voice or...
The beard is a little different.
That's a more blatant.
Mine's looks like I've been eating ice cream.
We have. At some point, not recently, but you got... so I've been spending a lot of time live streaming lately, broadcasting for my channel and occasionally this channel as well, but people might not know that was in your background too, before you got into teaching, right?
I did. For a time, I worked in radio.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a small local Christian radio station.
You had a good voice for it.
Yeah, I got a good face for radio.
I hope no one told you that.
No, it was
it
was fun. It was a job I would have done for a long time, except it really was hard to make a lot of money at it.
Sure.
It's the kind of job that if you would go, up the market, move to bigger and bigger cities.
Right.
Which I really didn't have a lot of interest in doing.
You didn't like the big city life.
No, I couldn't see doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I enjoyed that. I was on KKXX radio, which I still think is a working AM radio station.
Wow.
It was in Paradise, which is the town that kind of burned to the ground. And I think it burned years before that, the actual
Several
station.
times.
Yeah, they've had trouble with the physical plant.
That's too bad.
Radio's sort of changed over the years. But at the time, I was on air and on the mic live, and I was...
So is it music mixing mostly?
Yeah,
or?
I did music too.
As well.
The old days, a DJ had I had 2 turntables, record players.
Wow.
And I'd get a record
DJ.
queued up and have that ready and start talking, hey, here comes your latest from so-and-so, and hit the button and it would start playing underneath my voice as I said what time it was. It was tricky.
So you faded it in and everything?
Sometimes, fade and move around, and then you're watching the clock because the news would come on at right at the top of the hour, and if you were in the middle of a song, you had to fade it out and go to the news.
Wow.
Or hopefully you timed things so that you had a little...
So is that a big mixer board?
Yeah, a big one. It was called a yard board. So it was literally 3 feet
it's a yard.
wide.
Wow.
It wasn't like graphic equalizers like you see people pretend they know what they're doing with all those things. It was just potentiometers, just volume controls for all different sources, and sometimes we'd play something over the satellite, or sometimes we'd play something over a cassette player, or cart machine was cool. It looked like an 8-track.
Yeah.
But it would play a 30-second spot, and we would make, commercials or public service announcements that were exactly 30 or exactly 60.
So did you record those yourself?
Yeah, I did a lot of the commercials, radio commercials. So I would write. Yeah, this was before any of my kids were born. So
yeah, this was I
had a lot of time on my hands. So
you had to write them?
I wrote and produced radio commercials. It was a commercial radio station, so
What did they give you to work with, basically? Just say something nice about this brand?
Yeah, sometimes. They would say, here, you would have a little sheet that you would record, write down, okay, what sort of things do they want to have on it? Sometimes, you get creative and come up with a character or something, or some people
Robin
dial
Williams' voice.
Yeah, try to make up voices and things. I had, and then you could speed up or slow down your voice. You could sound like a little kid or maybe like a lady.
Oh, wow.
I did a kind of a character roughly based on my grandmother.
Oh, really?
That she had kind of a high voice, and she would talk really loud, and I speed up my voice a little bit, so And no, I had a lot of fun with that. Some commercials, it was just straight.
So they didn't give you much direction, though.
No, it was it was fun that way. It was a very creative job.
You had a lot of control over the ads.
Well, you'd have to play the commercial for the client.
Oh, they'd have to approve it.
And so they'd approve it.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And sometimes they'd go, no, I don't want that. I just want you to tell them about the sale we're having on Thursday. That's all I want. Well, come on.
No one cares about that.
That's no fun.
Show up, there's a sale.
Yeah. So I did that a couple of years. Started just weekends, and it turned into a full-time thing. So I was working construction, and then on weekends I'd work at the radio station, and then radio station invited me to come on full-time. So I quit the construction job and did that full-time.
Was that refreshing to quit construction?
That was weird. Yeah, because typically the only time I was making money is if I was really dirty, crawling under a house or something.
Something really awkward,
labor,
and painful.
Yeah. So to go to work in my dress clothes and go home and I'm still not all dirty at the end of the day. I didn't feel like I'd done anything.
Right.
I just felt like I was goofing off and having fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's a different advertising world we live in now, because I think about how when I stream, it's primarily funded. Well, it's kind of half and half. A lot of it's ad revenue that YouTube throws in there.
Right.
And you can place ads throughout a stream. I normally do one every 30 minutes. And they reimburse you for watch time. So they can see to the second how long people were watching you, how much they were watching you, how engaged they were, whether you guys are asking in the chat. He'll answer your guys' questions if you want.
Oh, chat away.
Chat away.
I'm sure they're just lining up.
This is the benefit.
Is anyone even watching?
30 people so far. So
well,
it's like a full class.
It's a worldwide audience, folks.
Yeah. They'll
call your friends and neighbors.
They'll watch after it's live too. It'll be available after. So there's more than just the 30. Daniel is hoping you're well. Grant's like, I'm glad the channel's still live. I don't know where the beeping's coming from. That was weird.
Must be one of those beeps that older people can't hear.
Those high Did you not hear it?
I heard nothing.
Oh, wow. Now I feel special. Someone's first question was just Apple or Android, but I think your watch gives that away. But yeah, feel free to ask away, because we'll just keep talking if you guys.
We don't have any trouble. We've been talking all morning.
Yeah, that's what we were like. We gotta save some for the show. But I was just going off about how YouTube gives us how many people watched, how long they watched. They reimburse for that. People super chat. YouTube takes a cut of those, but that also helps for a lot of the funding. Whereas in the radio world, was there much of a way of tracking how effective an advertisement was?
Yeah, that was tricky. On those, they probably still do this. Mention this ad, mention KKXX radio and get an additional 10%. That was how you would track it.
Oh, so if people signed up and mentioned
or people went to the store and bought a milkshake or something, and they say, oh, by the way, I heard your ad on KKXX. Oh, well, you get an extra 10% off. So
was there any way back then of knowing how many active
no. Not a technological way.
You could guess.
Yeah. We used to joke, like with AM radio, you had to be careful that you stopped talking when people drove under a bridge.
That's right, because it got
But actually, we had no idea who was listening or how far away. Once in a while, you'd get a letter from. There's these people. Ham radio operators are big on. What's going on with the frequencies? They like to follow that. And we'd get a call from somebody going, "Hey, you're bleeding over into this other frequency. You better make an adjustment to your transmitter." It's like, sorry, didn't mean to bleed over. And then other people would say, hey, I was in Seattle and I could hear your broadcast, which would have been hundreds and hundreds of miles away, and we were not high powered. So if the atmospheric conditions were just right, a signal could carry, and they thought we'd be curious to know that we had that kind of audience. But the FCC would regulate how much power you could have at that frequency, and they would draw a map showing basically what area you were likely to hit and how well. And so you knew what your potential audience
Right.
was, but you didn't necessarily know.
That's interesting that
How
there
many
was
people-
whole businesses built around that, and they had very little data, honestly, to work
Right.
with relative to now, where I can tell you exactly
that's why
how many.
so much of it exploded when you could do that. And
Right.
track and target.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, not that we were going to talk about my book, but
We
I
have
did. Amazon has a way of doing ads
Yep.
where you pay for them,
Mm-hmm.
and you pay by the click.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
it's like, how much do you want to spend,
Uh-huh.
and how much would you be willing to pay for every click we get you as we advertise?
So you can
So-
put in any dollar amount, basically.
Yeah.
That's
So I thought,
cool.
okay, I'll spend $100,
Uh-huh.
and I'll pay $1 for every click
There you go.
until we get to $100, and then it all stops.
Wow.
So, and it, and it's not sale. They're not doing the sale. They're just
Right.
doing how many people click on
from that ad.
from that ad.
I see.
So, and then they try to target.
Mm-hmm.
You give them some parameters, and they try to target people that are buying Legos or are buying
Sure.
toys, or people who buy books about
They relate to the
parenting or
Uh-huh.
yeah. So yeah, and then they send you kind of a little report every once in a while. Hey,
Huh.
we've gotten a couple clicks for you.
They did. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's you were talking about going all the way to what was it, Seattle with your
I think
radio
so.
station? Now people are checking in, letting us know. Ginuno 98 watching from Portugal. Isengard Tom said Belgium, and
Wow.
Yeehaw Ali says Egypt. So even out in Egypt, we got people.
Wow.
That's fun.
That's cool. That the technology now is so mind blowing for people
Yeah.
my age and people who worked in the media.
Uh-huh.
Who are still thinking, hey, I gotta.
Because radio's still there. They're still
It's there. It's
hanging on.
It's different, and
Sure.
I think like anything, the more local it can be is important, because you can have your people, your local people, your
area
local
that you
news.
tune into.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
Whizzle's asking how mountain biking's going, thinking about getting into it, but he's currently a road cyclist. So you're looking at the guy who taught me to ride a
I
bike.
inspired many people to ride. I blew out my knee a few years ago,
Ouch.
and I kind of got past that and rode quite a lot. In fact, I don't think we really rode consistently until after I'd had knee surgery.
Oh, that's right.
But
Yeah.
now, as I'm getting older, I'm getting more arthritic. So, but I've noticed, and I got a exercise bike, stationary bike.
Oh, cool.
I've noticed the more I do that, the stronger I'm getting.
Good.
And so I've been riding more and more out on the trails.
So that
and
must
out on
be
the road.
pretty different, even though you're still pedaling and handlebars.
Yeah.
It's not technical, which is
I
a lot
enjoyed
of what
the
ours
technical side of it. I enjoyed the outing, just being outside and
Sure.
doing with friends and doing that.
is. Scenery.
So, yeah. But I live in a region now that there's going to be parts of the year that's not going to happen. So I thought it'd be good during the winter to have at least that. And,
Sure. I never
not
had...
winter yet, but I'm trying.
Right. I never had much experience road cycling. Did you ever do that?
Not
before?
a lot, no. Not.
I'd
I
always
had
found it
friends
so
that would
dangerous.
go hundreds of miles.
Really? Hundreds?
Well, I ride motorcycles all over the country
Yeah.
on the street. And people tell me how dangerous that is.
Sure.
And I kind of laugh. I know. As soon as I have a good wreck, I'm going to agree with them. But right now, I
You
know.
haven't yet, so
But just having the power to get out of a bad situation versus a bicycle,
can't really power through.
I feel bad telling road cyclists, "Oh, that's just dangerous." When
You're
I
a
hear that all the
motorcycle.
time about motorcycles, but yeah, that whole idea of being out there and then you get kind of boxed in with something and you can't just gun it and
Rev
get out of it.
Right.
But I didn't do that a lot. I never did. I really liked being out on a trail somewhere, and I've seen bear, I've
Right.
seen all kinds of critters. We rode at night. Remember how much
Yeah.
we used to ride all winter?
Lots and lots.
We
Deer
had
all over the
headlamps
place, and
headlamps
skunks.
and helmet bar lamps, so we could really see and go. And skunks,
and jackrabbits.
jackrabbit.
Didn't you say at one point they would kind of follow your light?
The skunks did.
The skunk would,
Which
that's
was
right.
scary because you'd ride and you'd see a skunk up ahead, and what do? You'd stop, but what they would do is follow the light. And so if you stopped and you kept watching them, they just stopped too, and they stayed on the trail. So
Right.
I learned, point my head that way, the light goes that way, and the skunk runs after the...
He'll follow the light.
He didn't seem to go at me.
Yeah.
He would go towards what was being lit up.
That's so weird.
And I did that a number of times, and it really worked. So I could steer the skunk off the trail and be fine.
Just point him a different direction.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one summer where we ran into like you ran into 3 different deer? And one of them was on the motorcycle. You remember that?
Oh, not in bicycles.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about the lights because
deer run into the lights or get confused and try to run away and run into you.
I think your theory, well, that's that old saying of deer in the headlights comes from.
Yeah.
Your theory on that, I can't remember if it was you or someone else, was that they wait to cross the road until they could see the other side. So when the car comes, it lights up the road and they go,
"Oh, good.
Great, I can see," and then they cross.
Motorcyclists, they warn you it's early evening is the most dangerous time. But I did have one deer, it ran into me, to be fair.
Yeah, you were going...
I was riding, I wasn't going
speed.
really fast, but it ran out of the bushes and hit me in the side. It wasn't in the front. And I luckily kind of leaned into it, just somehow I leaned into it.
Because that'll kill people, right?
That's a very...
Get knocked over on a motorcycle.
Motorcycle killer. Either swerving or, getting launched over the bars or trying to get away and hitting an oncoming car or something.
So that type of situation, probably a lot of situations on the motorcycle, is like just staying straight, not trying to take it out of the way of the obstacle.
It's just how you react in that instant. It's got to be crazy.
Well, we had 2 questions that kind of contradicted each other, which was interesting. Alpha was saying, "Tell us an embarrassing story about Drew," and then Mo Hussein says, Jay Nola said, "What's the proudest dad moment you've had raising Drew?" We've got 2 counteracting each other.
Raising Drew.
Pick the most embarrassing and then the proudest.
There's so many of each.
Yes, lots of.
I remember you were like in 2nd or 3rd grade, and you had not washed properly, and you had kind of along the nose there. And Mom said, "I want you to go in the bathroom and scrub your face." And I think you were kind of mad, and you took the washcloth and you really scrubbed your face, and within an hour or so, you had like raised skin marks or raised abrasions on both sides of your nose, and we didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And we have a doctor that's a good friend.
Yeah.
And we said, "Hey, could you look at Drew's nose? Do you think that's some kind of, you got fungus going, or what's that?" He goes,
"Wow,
I think he rubbed it with something." Looks
I
like
was
an
really
abrasion.
angry, I guess. I don't remember being that angry.
You were just like, "Oh, I'll show Mom. I'll get this clean." And it was just that you'd rubbed yourself, an abrasion.
That nose was way too rigorous. Should be careful.
Proud moments. Oh, you know what? I think this stands out. When you graduated from high school, you had learned to hate high school so much.
I was going to say,
you did not want to go to graduation. And you knew all graduation was, because you'd been to your sister's. And you'd be sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
And wait for your name to be called, and people would clap, and you'd get your diploma. And you thought, why would I want to sit out there and do that?
And I was doing YouTube stuff at this point. This was 2016, so I was doing tech videos and Saturday shorts and all that. So
what you did instead, I said, "Okay, well, if you're not doing graduation, I want you to prepare a speech and do a speech, and we'll have the family over. We'll have a big dinner, and we'll have everybody we can get family-wise there, and they'll get to have a graduation because they like going to graduations."
Right.
They like the significant event, but this will be better because you'll actually perform.
I'll get to say something instead of just sitting around.
And you did. You put out. It was like a 6 or 7 minute
3-hour
speech. No. It was appropriate in length, but every bit as appropriate as in length as a real graduation speech at a high school would have been. And you thanked everybody there personally and talked about each person, And they were prepared remarks. You weren't just off the cuff. You had written some notes.
That's right.
That was
on my iPad.
That was a neat moment. That was powerful.
I do remember that.
I think everyone should do that.
That was fun, yeah.
Here's a raise your own dang kids concept.
I don't know.
Have your own dang graduation. Have your own dang. Because who wants to sit there? I've sat there for so many graduations. Sat in the bleachers. Sure. People around me are loud and rowdy and obnoxious and rude, and then I hear my kid's name, and that's really it for me. And the rest of the time, I knew some kids because they were students and stuff, but I really didn't care to be there.
Yeah,
it was just not a kind of event that I look forward to.
Yeah, that was I kind of forgot until you just mentioned that. That was an interesting event that we had at home because. You're right. It's like everybody who wanted an event of some sort.
I think Ross came too, and it would have been his graduation. I don't think they had him do a speech, but I think his folks came and.
Yeah, we had everybody together, and it was a big group. Pretty much everyone that would have gone to my graduation, just to watch me walk across the stage, because my grades weren't good enough to be one of the four
the valedictorians,
2 selected that do get the speech. So they were like, "Well, we don't know who they are. We don't need to watch a bunch of other kids do it."
It was great.
And then everybody went around and said something, which was nice.
Yeah, we had that time as well.
It was pretty emotional. I remember people.
Yeah, I think so.
Getting a little weepy-eyed, and it was touching.
Such a significant moment.
Yeah.
That I don't think would have been had we been sitting in the bleachers at the stadium.
Sitting around for a few hours in the sun and hearing people cheer, and then meet in the parking lot.
Where we lived at that time, it was usually about 100 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
And if not, it was pouring rain.
One or the other.
So you were not going to have a good experience in the bleachers no matter how you prepare. No. And we'd always get next to some people with an air horn who seemed to know every other person. Every time.
And then how does the one person feel where nobody knows them? Yeah. Everyone's cheering. And Brittany, and then... How do they feel?
The school board.
They don't get anything. Right. Ross is in the chat.
Oh, good.
We were just
Our
talking
buddy
about
Ross.
He said, any advice for guys trying to gain some momentum in their endeavors?
Gaining momentum in your endeavors.
That's a deep one.
That is. And, there's the standard platitudes of never give up.
Never surrender.
But
Tim Allen.
I think, where do you start on that? That is so big. Here's what I would encourage you not to do or not to worry about I'm already 20 blah blah years old.
Uh-huh.
I should have this, I should be married, I should have a house, I should have started, my YouTube channel should be here, or I should have started in my career and that kind of thing. I think that's a mistake, that comparing thing.
I should be,
yeah. Because what you're pursuing might not be absolutely clear yet. And I think I look back over the course of various endeavors thinking, that was a stepping stone to this one, and that was a stepping stone to this one. So if you can get all you can out of the one you're in, so if you're in high school, you get all you can out of that one, and then when you're people who are in the military or people who are, everybody wants to be at the next step, at the next level.
Sure.
And I think that's that can be a detriment if you're not totally focused and doing the best you can right here. I wasn't ever in the military, but a lot of friends have been.
Yeah.
And they have some very strict ideas by making your bed and having your uniform a certain way and all of that. And people think, I could never put up with that. I'll never go in the military because of that. But what that teaches them is to be in the detail of right now. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to make my bed and I'm going to make it look good.
Right.
And that's the first thing I did today. And the first thing I did today, I was successful to do. And now I'm going to do the next thing. The Navy SEALs have these breathing apparatus they put on when they dive. And they check each other out. And and, if there's a strap twisted, who cares?
Yeah.
It's this twisted strap. But no, they'll stop and they'll fix that because they know if putting this thing on has a procedure and I want to be attentive to those details. If I'm not attentive to those details, what's going to happen with a more complex
right.
procedure down the road, one that could end your life. You know, if you start this attitude that I don't really need to try very hard because this one isn't so important. You know,
that won't
like
fly.
High school's stupid, I shouldn't bother with it.
Right.
Or, you know, I'm just in the military right now, I drive a truck or whatever. That's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a big deal when I get to college, or it'll be a big deal when I start my career. That's when it's going to get to be a big deal. And I think that's a mistake. I think people have to kind of stop and look at where am I now?
Right.
And do that well. Do that right.
Wow.
So
that's a good answer.
That's my answer. And Ross, we can talk more about that. I have no fears. No worries for you.
No fears. We got several more questions now. Sorry. We'll bring it back to text so we can hold everyone's attention.
Yeah.
Mo Hussein, sorry, I read your message earlier, but I glossed over it. What phone is your dad using, and do you think he can notice the ProMotion display? So I got to get my phone so I can show you.
Well, this was...
They know this phone.
This was Drew's phone. So
yeah.
Most of what I use, and his watch.
Yeah.
Most of what I have are his,
I gave you
cast
that.
off.
I gave you that at some point.
Oh, that's right. That was a
Christmas
brand
present.
new watch.
I gave you a watch
Excuse me.
At some point. But, okay, so look at your display there.
Okay.
And just kind of swipe back and forth.
Yeah.
Now look at this one. Do you notice a difference at all in the motion?
In the motion?
Yeah.
Like, is it a more fluid screen change?
Yeah, this is 60 hertz. So he has the 11 Pro Max that I used for the record. All the 11 Pro Max videos you watched back in 2019 and 2020. That's that phone. And then this is 120 hertz. So it's twice the refresh rate.
Well, I can see a clarity to it
on
yours that is not with mine.
Okay.
And I have bad eyes.
Okay, so that's not helping.
That's definitely in its favor. The motion thing I'm not noticing as much.
Okay. See, some people don't notice it, and some people really notice it.
Yeah.
So that's why whenever I have people on, or whenever I talk about people in my personal life, they're like, do they notice 120 hertz?
Well, the YouTube app that you have is obviously the red contrasts with the white with more clarity and sharpness.
Oh, okay. Interesting. You noticed that. It's not much of a difference there.
Here's the thing, as you get older, those finer details they'll
kind of fall apart.
It doesn't really matter very much.
That's fair.
So you watch a movie on your phone and people are, his screen's so much better, and I'm like, I can't tell.
And that's to your advantage. This is something I like to bring up to people. It is my drawback if I notice that type of detail, because now there's an annoyance with a solution behind a paywall for me.
Oh.
And if you are not annoyed by that, you don't have to go through that paywall to appreciate those features. So
that's right.
If you look at a display that's 60 hertz and you say that's fine, and I look at a display that's 60 hertz and I say that doesn't look right,
terrible.
I need 120, that's my loss. I'm now at a disadvantage for that. So I don't try to convince people that they should
it's
spend
always
more money.
Isn't it always something to do with what you get used to?
Right.
Because everyone, like when we moved a bunch of my computers, remember, recently, and we set them all up, and you guys wanted to look at one of the old computers and had some old games that used to play on it.
Right.
Like, what was that Marble?
Oh, the Monsters Pinball?
That was Marble Blast.
Oh, Marble Blast. Yeah.
Yeah.
We played that all the time.
And you guys want to see if it still worked on my old computer that had been in storage.
Right.
And you broke it up and set it all up and started it up. And that computer, when I look at it now, what was that, 2007?
I think it was older. I think the iMac that's giving you trouble now in your current house is from 7.
Yeah, it's obvious that screen is dull compared to anything else I have. Computer-wise. So, I mean, but I remember when I got that computer back in the day, going, holy smokes.
Right.
And people were talking about better displays. And how do you get any better? Right. What do you want? What kind of detail do you need? That's just amazing. But now I can tell. It's like somebody has smeared a layer of Vaseline over the screen in comparison to...
You've now seen the light.
Yes.
You've taken the pill.
That's
whatever it is.
The red pill.
Wizzle from earlier said that road cycling is getting more dangerous in his area. That's why he's considering a mountain bike.
Yeah.
That's why he's looking into it.
Well, it's definitely seems like you got people crowding the roads wherever you are if you're in an area that's expanding and growing.
Mm-hmm.
And man, to
I've
get out
never
there
done
with
it,
those,
really.
because my goodness, and people with their phones, and that's a big deal.
Ooh.
I've noticed with motorcycles, there's a lot of YouTubes. There's some motorcyclists that are really big on banging on a window if they see somebody talking on their phone.
Oh yeah, let them know.
Yeah, I tell them, hey, put your phone away.
Right.
Because that's killing people on motorcycles quite a
yeah.
lot. You know, you just
Everybody.
Well, and there's so little room for error if you change lanes into a motorcycle, and that's what happens when you're on your phone is you drift over the lane.
Sure.
Well, if you bump somebody, that could be a problem. But if you
car,
bump a motorcycle,
motorcycle gets knocked over.
And,
there was data being shown on this recently because there's a lot of talk in the EV community about self-driving and how safe self-driving vehicles are getting versus how safe are humans. And I think it was NHTSA or someone reported data, and we're getting worse. Like the number of miles driven in 2020 went down because of more people working from home and less commuting. Total miles driven went down. Accidents still went up from 19 to 20.
Just distractions.
From distracted driving. Like it's getting progressively worse, unfortunately. But that's why I'd be hesitant.
I saw.
To get into
Was it MythBusters that did a thing where they, on a closed course, they compared drunk drivers to distracted drivers?
Or wasn't it Sleepy? I can't remember.
But they had to go through a course.
It might have been distracted.
And they got somebody a little buzzed.
Yeah.
Went through the course, and then they had them do the same course while they responded to text or something, and they were just wiping it out. No, it
was worse.
It was way worse.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, most people would say, "Oh, I'd never drive drunk. Of course, I'll never drink and drive."
They check their phone. Yeah.
But they would check their phone.
I'm somewhat guilty of that, unfortunately. I was talking to
which one?
Checking the phone. Sometimes it's not. It's rarely ever been texting, but it's typically not the drunk driving. Sorry, I realized what you were asking. I don't even drink when I'm not driving. I don't drink alcohol.
I drink coffee.
In general. I don't even drink coffee. I don't drink soda, alcohol, coffee. I'll drink tea.
I think coffee could be pretty dangerous when you pour it in your lap or something.
Yeah. No, I've gotten distracted by just like music or like I want to play something else or this.
Trying to change the podcast on your long drive.
I was talking to Louise about it recently on the drive back from the dentist. I was like, I have a problem. I need to. I spent way too much time messing around with the phone.
Yeah.
But thankfully, nothing has gone bad yet.
Oh, man, it is.
I'm trying to. Be more focused.
It's just too easy.
Yeah. Daniel Curry is asking you favorite topic to teach in school. You've kind of done it all.
Yeah, well, lower grades you're multi-subject, so and something I like to do is integrate the subjects. So, in fact, I'm working on another project right now where I'm writing stories, but the stories have science embedded in them.
Oh, okay.
And then you do little activities like hands-on STEM-related activities.
Problem-based learning?
Yeah, well, it can be.
It
yeah.
can be.
Problem-based learning in the book is about where you'd introduce a question or introduce a problem of some kind, and then let the kids kind of go with it. How are they gonna solve that? If it was just a subject or topic, I enjoy science and I enjoy particularly space science. We used to do a lot with that. You'll remember we're talking about Mars or talking about space flight or the history of space flight or the ideas about the future of space flight and the scientific concepts around it. We built rockets and we built robots and rovers and things. And
so you can tie everything together there. You got history, math, science.
Right.
Probably some writing sections.
Definitely writing about, or even creative writing. Like, what would it be like to be there? I did a lot with social studies too, and I have a social studies credential. But same thing. We would like to do problem-based, you are there kinds of things. Like, how would you handle it if, you landed with Columbus and you met these people and these Native Americans that were there, and what would be your reaction to them? What would be there? Be with him. What would that feel like? or you're on a sailing ship and you're lost at sea. What would it be like for you? What would you do? How would you handle it? How would you feel? What would the kinds of... So you can get into, the writing as a discipline can be, something where you write about a subject, or you can write as if you're a part of history or part of the subject, or you're immersed in it somehow.
That's always more interesting.
I think so.
Open the textbook. And for those unaware, I've read most of the book. I'm still working on the last few chapters, but I've read it now since the last show because we finally got my own copy. Right. And I really enjoyed the sections about the problem-based learning approach because it I think requires more creative input from the student's perspective. And I think what stood out to me about that approach to teaching was the very noticeable disconnect to when I didn't have that after your class, because I had you in 6th grade. And then after that, middle school had some good teachers, but definitely less, because in middle school you take that disconnect from individual classes, whereas you were covering all classes. And then high school to me felt like the biggest drop off, because that's when I didn't feel that many great teaching experiences outside of here's what's in the curriculum, here's the textbook.
It's tricky with how a school's structured, because most middle schools and high schools are what we call departmentalized. So you go to history, you go to language arts, you go to science, you go to math, and unless those teachers, run across the hall and coordinate with other teachers, they don't tend to integrate very much.
There's no way.
The subjects, they don't tend to pull them together and connect them. And it's kind of left to the kid to do that. Well, the kid doesn't even want to be there in the first place. And so they're making those connections. Whereas if you have a class, like you would have video production class.
Sure.
So there was writing, and you guys had to time it out. So there was some math, and that kind of clock math or cyclical math where you're timing out every 60 seconds is a minute, and how many of those do we have? And you would get it all to find out. And there was, of course, the content, and there was the performance aspect of it, speaking and reading aloud, or writing your script and reading it aloud, and all of those disciplines start to come together with a video production class. And if you're going to do a topic, like you're going to talk about some part of history, well, now we're pulling all the subjects together, and we're writing about them, and we're speaking them aloud, we're presenting them. We might go out and decide what images might go with it, and whether we're going to do a technical thing where we're editing it all together or getting it out onto the internet. There's just a lot of skills that have to come together. Whereas if you're sitting and filling out a packet, or you're reading a textbook and answering the vocabulary and discussion questions, or comprehension questions at the end of a chapter, and that's the whole point of the class, that can be pretty weak.
Yeah.
That can be pretty boring.
That's a difficult question to answer, I guess, then. Favorite topic is...
Space science.
Space science.
I think
we'll go
so.
with that.
That's what gets me going when we start talking.
But it's worth noting you make an effort to bring it all
together.
Not just one over the other. Maybe the question is fun.
My goal is everything doesn't need to be language arts. So language arts usually read something, you write about it, or you respond to questions, you learn some vocabulary. Science can be taught the same way.
Yeah.
You read about it, you answer the questions, you learn some vocabulary, you take a quiz. Versus, can we combine those subjects and then have us make something or do something sciencey, scientific?
Yeah.
STEM is that science, technology, engineering, mathematics all blended together.
And then stream added the R.
Stream added the R and the A.
Oh, right.
For arts. So can you draw about it, write about it, sing a song about it, make a cake, build make a musical.
Sure.
Your mother did musicals on everything from all the parts of speech. She did a whole musical on the parts of speech. Little dancing adverbs. So you can combine the arts, and so the more we integrate, then I don't care what the subject is, because it touches on the subjects I really like.
Right.
Probably. Because we've integrated a lot of ideas.
Yeah. Like that ties into another big question. They like asking you big, broad, non-specific questions.
I can take it.
Jaden says, do you think they need to fix the U.S. education system?
Well, it depends on who they is. If they means somebody...
He goes into that here a lot.
Yeah, somebody at the top, somebody in Washington, D.C. decides, here's how we're going to teach. That could get really yucky, ugly really fast.
Yeah, because it's a very complicated problem.
Yeah, I was teaching when they declared No Child Left Behind.
Right.
We used to call that Nickel B.
Uh-huh.
No Child Left Behind. And most teachers, after the implications of No Child Left Behind, most teachers started calling it No Teacher Left Alive. But Nickel B became the emphasis on testing, and that was how we would know whether kids, we were improving as teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But testing tends to lead to teaching towards the test. And I think I even heard the president at that time say, well, I don't care if you teach the test as long as what we want them to learn is on the test.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, pretty simple, quick, one-liner rhetoric about a very complex idea. And so the idea of, we were talking about integrating subjects and pulling in technology in a way that kids are using it, not just, consuming it.
Right.
And of course, with COVID, there's had to been an emphasis of the use of technology and equity of technology. We needed to be able to send kids home with Chromebooks or iPads and that sort of thing. And they needed to be competent enough to find Google Classroom, and then basically do worksheets, or use some app that drilled math practice facts with them. While I was zooming in with kids and we were building a robot, or we were building, I was sending home baggies full of Legos, and I kind of inventoried those out, and you should be able to build this, and I had
to spoil the book, but this kind of dives into engagement over mastery, right?
Yes, the idea that if kids are real excited about what they're learning, somehow by voodoo magic, they do better on tests.
So the tests will take care of themselves.
Tests take care of themselves. I don't have to teach the test.
Whereas the high school approach I dealt with was much more of that grit, you called it. But
yes, if we really make them work hard and they keep practicing how to work hard and they just power through all those factoring of polynumerals
and reading the books,
they'll do better on the test. And what happens is they shut down and they're so dull and they don't want to do anything. And then you hand them a test. And I knew a kid who turned their Scantron sheet sideways and wrote their name in Scantron dots. Matt.
Oh wow!
And then that turned in. That was how he scored. And this guy was smart.
Yeah.
Very smart, but he hated just the whole act
of
test taking so much that he did poorly.
Right.
Intentionally did poorly.
Right.
Now some kids are going to intentionally do their best and still not do very well. Other kids, can build a whole robot and make it work and win competitions and do poorly on tests.
Right.
So if that kid is in my class, did I fail him because he did a poor job on the test? What did I do for him if I inspired him to build robots and he went on and became an engineer or something because he was so inspired by that? So yeah, it's tricky, and it's a good thing I'm not in charge of education for the whole country, because we'd probably be really bad test takers, but maybe we'd be really excited about learning. And I don't know that those are, one follows the other. Maybe they don't.
Well, to your credit, at least from what you've written in the book and what we've talked about, it doesn't seem like it's typically one or the other. It sounds like most of the time when you get the kids engaged and when you're teaching them how to build robots, that the test scores take care of themselves.
Yeah, I was in a situation where I had Legos in my class, and we did a lot with those Legos. We built a lot of things.
Yeah.
And my kids did either the same or better than the other classrooms around.
Wow.
Around them.
So it's not like because they're good at Legos and Lego League and robotics, that means they're bad test takers. It's
right.
It's
but
typically
I think the engagement helped, because I certainly didn't give as much time to the details, the standards and things that were on the test. And we were told to write down the standards that you're going to cover right in your lesson plan, so that you have an accounting for how you're covering every standard, because those are what are tested.
Yeah.
I never did that. I didn't have time because I was getting Legos and toothpicks and marshmallows and things together for the kids to do.
Sure.
And that meant I didn't get to the standards as well or as often or as diligently or as I couldn't check them off.
Sure.
I think you were there once, so I was going to be observed by the principal. Yeah. And the principals were supposed to look for things like the standards in the lesson that they observed. So principal would come in, sit in your classroom for 50 minutes, watch you teach and see what you're doing. And they wanted to see these things that they could check off on a sheet. Did he cover the standards? Did he do this? So I totally cheated. I gave some of my really smart kids the standards and had them memorize those. And then I said, see, right in the middle, I want you to raise your hand and talk about this standard. So we were doing some kind of a lesson on public speaking, I think. And I was setting it up, and all of a sudden, Lacey's hand goes up. Yes, Lacey. This feels like it's standard 12.2 from the language arts strand, which says students should learn to blah, 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 blah. And she laid it out there, and that principal looked up. What are you doing? And I popped that in 3 or 4 times. And he gave me all high marks. I had 2 or 3 of those kids planted in my class.
Right.
He gave me all high marks, but he kind of smacked me in the head with the evaluation and said, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I think my 4th grade teacher, Mr. Yaloa, did something similar where he said, when the principal come in, he said, everyone raise your hand, but if you know the answer, use your left hand. And if you don't know the answer, use your right.
Well, and the thing is with that is that it's a square filling exercise. Most teachers are in a union. And unless they're, literally beating the kids with a stick, they're not going to get fired for not covering the standards. They might get a good talking to.
Sure.
That's about it. Yeah. So when you're in a public school system. But I figure, look, I engaged those kids, and did they learn the standards? They memorized the standards.
Yeah, they got them.
So, and they were all fighting over who got to do this. So it was like, no, I think it's a good thing I'm not in charge of a top-down kind of approach to education. In starting in charter school, we're the bad boys of education in charter schools. Because we said, something's not working, let's try it another way. And that's really what a charter school is. It's still a public school.
Yeah.
It's still getting public money.
A lot of people miss that.
Yeah. It's not, we don't get to select who goes.
Right.
It has to be random. If there's a waiting list, you have to order that waiting list randomly. We use poker chips with numbers and put them in a barrel and turn them around.
Which is required.
Right. Some kind of a randomization process, and that was one that was recommended. So we didn't make that up. It was done.
Yeah.
And so a charter school is one that says, we're going to try it a different way, and we got a plan. And you get your plan together, and you get it approved. That doesn't mean that people are going to show up and go.
Yeah.
So it's on you to get bodies there. So stream. I wore this shirt in our last.
Yeah, you're consistent.
I said I would wear this shirt until Drew read the book, until he finishes.
Well, you didn't have any Raise Your Own Dang Kids merch to rep. I gave up all my merch.
Yeah,
but
maybe I should.
I do think it's to kind of tie into Jay Nola's question, what was your motivation to write the book? If I may, the book explains a lot of the motivation itself in that is it a failure because of that question earlier about from Jaden, do they need to fix the U.S. education system? Because there's a lot to unpack in that question about who's responsible for a child that went through the education system and was not successful or ended up struggling in life. Is it a failure of the system, or is it a failure of the what this ties into is the parenting?
Right.
And you probably would say this type of mindset or this type of parenting is more impactful than trying to fix an educational system.
Yes.
So you, like what you were saying, it's not about you becoming president or you becoming in control of all the schools in the country.
Right.
It's about changing the parenting methods and trying to avoid the common trends that people fall into.
And in the book, talk about when you were struggling with a class, as parents, we stepped up. Now, we're teachers, so we were a little more equipped.
Yeah.
But still, we weren't doing anything crazy. And it didn't mean, okay, well, for 2 hours every night, we're going to drill you on your times tables until you hate it because it's not happening at school. We didn't do it that way. But like if you got a book report or some kind of project, we would think nothing of helping you amp it up. Let's go take it to the next level. Let's learn. Or let's not go to Washington, D.C. with 300 eighth graders. Let's go with just our family and go see what interests us.
Right.
Or let's go to, Williamsburg or Gettysburg. Let's go ourselves and really learn about that thing and embark on the learning with your kids.
Yeah.
Let's work on projects together. Let's not just come home at night and you better do your homework. Okay, and they go in their room and you don't know what they're doing or what they did anything. Or,
right.
We just have reading tonight, so I don't have any homework. Well, reading's a pretty big deal. A lot of kids get away with that.
Right.
And 30 years in education, I saw it.
As a teacher and a parent.
Yeah. And then I would be the blame. I would be blamed if the kid wasn't doing well. Those stupid teachers, they don't teach anything.
Right.
It's like, well,
the drop-off approach.
Drop-off approach to parenting. For education and other things. Yeah.
And you would you talk about in the book the parenting method of just check in. Did you do the homework? Yep. Okay, good. And then you don't hear about them until report cards go out.
Right.
And that brings everybody out.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Progress reports and report card time. Well, how come I'm just hearing about this now?
Yeah.
I don't know, but did you notice Johnny's backpack's about this thick, full of all the work that we've corrected, and it's all stuffed in there and hidden and crammed down under an old sandwich, and you pull it out and there's all these red marks and he's not doing it and it's not complete and it's all that done. They don't realize that until progress report time, which is roundabout now, I think, for a lot of schools. So if you're a parent, time to check in.
Yeah, anytime's a good time to check in, right? Well,
and nowadays, your grade books and stuff that teachers use are usually open to the parent. Those parents are just like meticulous, like they go into that every night and what did he do? What did he do? So if I took the night off and didn't enter all the scores from the spelling test or whatever, I start hearing emails from parents right now, which I didn't mind, but it's like, hey, I'm going to post all this maybe tomorrow or the next day, so give me a chance.
Sure.
Well, kids are being stuffed in their rooms. You're not coming out until I hear how you got it.
Sure. That a raise is a great topic that I don't think we talked about much in the last podcast, but you talk a lot about it in the book, is kid culture. That stuffing in the backpack comes from the going to school becoming more of a social thing. It's to meet up with the friends, and we ignore the homework, or we're not there to really do what the teacher tells us. We're there to be in our mini culture. But
the kids are kind of a us versus them with the adults that are in charge. And that it comes up a lot, and it's addictive. Kids fall into it because they want to run and have their friends and have a
sense
good time.
Of community.
Yeah. Kid culture is scary. It says that the teachers and the adults in charge are trying to ruin your fun, so you gotta cheat, lie, steal, and hide to keep away from what the adults got going for us. Being the best at a sport or being the best at anything is a lot of currency for kids in the kid culture. They really want to be the best.
Sure.
And one of the ways of being the best is to tell other kids how lousy they are, or to pick on kids that are lesser than them, so that elevates their status. And that really creeps up on a kid. So my thing is, get your kids to school, get them home. There's people that leave their kids at school from 7:30 in the morning till 6 or later in the evening. Because there's an after-school program, or there's all these things, and the parents are free to do more adulting, and by necessity sometimes, as parents have jobs or whatever that are really demanding that kind of time. But boy, if you can avoid it during those school-age years and not set yourself up for that kind of a life for your kids, you're going to have a better experience. I believe it.
For sure. Tony Brooks said, "Your son is awesome. He saved me from Android."
The Android
I haven't
invasion.
heard it put that way exactly.
You just kept going until they learned.
Well, it's a funny comment I get a lot because I wonder if that's part of kid culture. It's just Android versus iOS. That's what.
Well,
we're
there
talking
is,
about.
in terms of sports and stuff.
Yeah,
I think I mentioned that in the book.
Bleeds
that
over
if you-
into tech quite a bit.
If you send your kid to school with in this part of the world, if you send your kid to school with a San Francisco Giants hat, they're probably going to be pretty safe and well accepted.
Yeah.
But if your family is a big Dodgers fan, and they exist up in the north,
Oh yeah.
they're going to be kind of picked on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because one team is better than the other. One year they are, one year they aren't.
The coaches change.
It's all
players
laundry.
change. Yeah.
It's all about what they're
The logo.
The logo.
Yeah.
You're rooting for the logo, and you got the wrong logo. And even teachers are guilty of. Oh, don't come
I
over
see.
here.
Yeah.
Not with that hat on. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I guess Dodgers and Giants played recently to get the championship.
I heard about it through Aunt Eleanor.
Okay. It all has
Yeah.
something to do with baseball, I think, but I'm not sure.
I'm not really into hockey.
But it's curling's just not my thing.
Yeah, that's our running gag. Anytime talks about sports, we intentionally will say anything but
People
the
look
sport.
at you like,
What? How could you say such a thing? But yeah, what's funny about that meme, or I often get messages about that, or super chats of like, thank you for what you do. I used to be on it. They talk to me like missionaries, or people who converted. I used to be on Android, but now I'm on iOS. What's funny is I've never done a video telling people why they should switch.
Yeah.
I've never made that. I mean, I've done videos in the past where I say why I
didn't
prefer
like this.
iOS.
Yeah.
This is why I like iOS, but I've never once ended a review with an Android phone saying, yeah, this is all great, but it's wrong because it's
I think
Android.
There is just you've been accused of being the fanboy, but you sort of owned it.
Now
by
I
saying-
embrace it.
You embraced it.
Apple
You said,
sheep.
I'm Apple sheep.
Right.
But I've seen you be very fair with
Mm-hmm.
trying out some device or whatever.
That was the goal, was to kind of like embrace the name and say, so I'm an Apple sheep, by the way. I'm very biased and I prefer Apple. And then go off into a very fair, honest, and somewhat understandable
people
perspective.
Are like, how dare you say something nice about Microsoft?
That was another issue I kept...
not.
people...
You call yourself an Apple
And you
sheep.
call yourself a sheep. Well, the more common issue is when I say bad things about Apple, people get upset.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what?
You're gonna
thought
make
you
the
were the
stock.
sheep.
You're gonna make the stock drop off. The,
Right. Well, it's...
your video goes up and the stock just drops down.
He doesn't like it. Right, yeah, the newer iMacs or the iPad OS being disappointing and that kind of thing. But the objective there was to get kind of past the name calling.
Yeah.
It's like end every video with a name call myself. This is your Apple sheep. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
He prefers Apple, he's into Apple, but now let's get to the argument.
That's right.
Let's get to the perspective. But some people never got past that
No.
point, and other people get mad when I use the term because you're not a sheep, you're criticizing them, so don't call yourself a sheep. But I always compared it to sometimes a sheep strays from the herd, and then Apple takes a white bezeled cane and breaks the leg.
So they come back and leave the 99 and go after the one.
It happens. It still happens. Now they're all making memes about Mountain Drew.
Mountain.
That was my nickname at, was it Shady Creek? Mountain Drew, something like that. We had a lot of good memories at the those camps there. That's pretty engaged approach.
Yeah, doing outdoor school.
Right.
We used to go up into the mountains for a week with the sixth grade and do a whole. We'd have bird class and survival class and all different ones. It was fun. It was sort of exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, teachers
always, like,
that work all week with kids, you got at least 6 hours of kid contact during the day, and then you have the rest of your time to prep for the next day and pick up the pieces from the last day, and then
and then take all that and move it up to camp, and now you got them 24/7. Make sure they go to bed and brush their teeth, and
right.
So after a week of that, I was done.
Yeah, for sure.
We usually tried to schedule those weeks right before a break, so it could.
And I did it once as a student, and then once as a counselor.
Came up
and I went with you.
Helped me with it as a counselor. That was good.
That was a very educational experience for me.
You for sure knew you never wanted to be a teacher after.
That was my trial.
Spending a trial
that
by
might
fire.
have been, that might have been too much at once.
Right,
for the trial
right,
period.
to work. You were good at it. I think you were very good at it. You were very attentive to those kids and made sure they were where they needed to be and safe, and stayed in their bed all night and all the rest of it. So, but that's a challenging thing.
Yeah,
and you were just junior or senior in high school, so
I think I was still.
You were pretty young yourself.
But that whole experience got me in the formula of maintaining. That wasn't even anything to you. That was 5-6 kids for me. You're doing well when you were working 30 kids,
groups of 30 or something. But
that's got to be an even more challenging dynamic.
It is. It's like herding lizards. Is what we always called it. You're herding lizards, getting where they need to go.
Someone has a question. I haven't read this, but
okay.
Brian's asking if we've read Hacking Your Education. Have you heard of that one? Dale Stevens?
That one I haven't heard of, and I'm trying to think of the names. It sounds a lot like unschooling, which is a big movement where school is, oh man, it is just left wide open. And there are actual schools, I don't know if I think they're private schools generally, and they just flat out let the kids decide what they're going to do. And there's little guidance and little, the teachers are just there to keep them from hurting themselves or others. And all the learning is on the kid.
Okay. Have you seen that approach in your experience?
Not locally. You really have to have, I would think in order for that to work, you'd have to have a lot of buy-in from parents, that they know that's what they're sending their kid to.
Yeah.
Montessori, you've probably seen, there's little Montessori schools, Montessori preschools. If you read about the lady, I can't think of her first name, but the lady there, they've named this movement from Montessori. She was always into that as well. You let the kid discover and decide what interests them. And she claimed kids were learning 2 and 3 languages, and they were inventing things and building things and making things. But I went to a Montessori, in fact it was for you. I went to a Montessori school. We brought you, and they were going to let you have a day there at the Montessori school just to explore it, and we could observe. And you went in and you got out some blocks and started doing something with the blocks, and a lady came up and said, "Oh, that's not how you do that, honey."
Oh.
And I went, "Okay, this is not a Montessori school. I don't care what it says on the door."
How old was I?
Oh, probably 3 or 4.
I was setting you up for
it was a preschool. It was a Montessori preschool.
17, 18.
I had spent maybe 25 minutes on the internet researching Montessori. I kind of got the concept though. I boned up on it before we went and observed. And I said, "That's not Montessori. I'm sorry. I'm not doing this." So we went somewhere else. But so I'm not sure about that book, but it could be unschooling is much the same, a very open formatted. And when I talk in the book and have experienced what we call problem-based learning, it's more like that, but I think it's a little more structured and guided. Just because I don't have the guts to tell 36 graders, "All right, go learn something," and then I just stand in the corner. I have to at least direct the theme of it. Or the direction of it, or what tools they have available to them, or I'll break them into some teams that I know will work, separating certain kids that I know can't work well together, that kind of thing. So that's pretty important, I think, as a teacher to provide the structure, and then if there can be some real open-endedness to what they produce or what they are, the direction the learning goes, and the kids can own that, I think that could be a good thing. But yeah, it would take a lot of restructuring of what the school is and how it's set up to to manage that in a way that it doesn't just turn into a chaos.
Yeah.
I don't like chaos as much as I like kids to be involved and engaged and doing stuff that excites them. I don't do well with kids being crazy and running around and
Sure.
You know.
It's like a rocket. It's like a controlled explosion. You got to have it directed somewhere to get somewhere.
Yeah. And then
You can't just
hopefully
go
all that
anywhere.
energy's channeled into something productive.
Right.
That's important.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not familiar with that particular book, but
Okay.
you probably knows there's just so many hundreds of books on education.
Oh, there has to be.
So I'm putting that in a broad category, but I would think unschooling or,
So if you have specific topics
the owning of your own learning is always going to trump me giving you a packet of stuff and say learn this.
Oh, yeah.
So
If there's more specific stuff in that book you're curious of his opinion on, feel free to ask.
yeah, definitely.
Instead of just the whole book.
Yeah,
We won't be able to read it by the end of this stream. But, yeah, it's, I appreciate the question. Thank you. Virgil was just saying that my method earlier was I got excited for Apple products and that got other people excited.
True.
So that's why they switch. Is they
Engagement over
they're
mastery.
engaged.
Yeah.
They're like, well, he seems really happy.
It must work for him.
Maybe I'll be happy. I still somewhat think to myself, if I'm, I'm obviously getting paid a decent amount to do this full time, and I'm able to make a living off of that. But I do often wonder when I read your book and read about what you were trying to inspire people or direct people in careers of is if I'm pursuing a career that isn't very valuable to the planet or not really pushing humanity forward, or we focus too much.
If you help one person find Apple, it will have been worth it.
One person.
If just one of you.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I think providing a platform where people can discuss these things. I think particularly when you're about to spend $1,200
Oh, sure.
of your hard-earned money on a phone, it's probably good to do some research and to have people out there, and you have skin in the game in a sorts, but you're not a developer for Apple. You're not going to benefit directly from that sale.
Yeah.
You're very unbiased in that sense, and you can say, well, that didn't do much for me. I wouldn't spend the money. I'd wait for this. And I've heard you say that kind of thing. I'd wait for this next version. I'd wait for this.
Right. Been helping you with your next Mac purchase.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
You're due for an upgrade. You're using a 2007.
Well,
iMac?
I have a newer MacBook that
Uh-huh.
I like, but I don't like the little MacBook for writing so much. It's just this little bitty thing. If I want to go to a coffee shop and write and that kind of thing, but I tend to just want to be at home. So
Sure.
I'm ready for another. I've had MacBooks, or not MacBooks, iMacs since the first one.
Yeah, but Stream always had a dedicated MacBook for you. You had the 12-inch for a while,
Yeah.
and then a MacBook Air.
Yeah, and an iPad we used.
So you're kind of done with the whole laptop scene.
Yeah,
So
I've done that.
Finding some actually really affordable iMacs from a few years ago. I think this one's not even that old. It's
It
a
was 2018.
2018, and it was on Amazon for under $400.
Under 400, and it's a 21 inch. And
So the storage
all in
isn't
one.
flash or the RAM isn't great, but I think for writing purposes,
writing and some YouTube stuff.
yeah, I think that'll work well.
And if a burglar comes, they're so much easier to steal.
That's the goal.
You don't. Yeah.
Oh, Brian came back with that subject. He said the book talks about you get the same value and amount of information you get in a normal education system for free. I'm trying to understand that approach. You talking about at-home learning or free education? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know what country he's from. United
okay.
Most people are. I'm guessing are have a public option which is free, and charter options which are free.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little harder to get in certain schools or a charter school. Private schools, I don't have a lot of experience with them. The ones that I've known, I don't know. Some of them kind of skimp.
Kind of struggle in the same areas.
You're paying for the culture. Is what you're paying for.
Yeah.
You don't like what's going on in the public school. might have really great teachers. It might be a really outstanding school in the sense of its facility and all that they offer in terms of programs, but the kinds of kids that go there make it difficult, or your kid's getting bullied there, or something like that. So you want to go to the private option. Well, if the private option's a really good school and has really good educational strategies and all that going on, that's great.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Just don't do
but
it
if
for
it's
the
just a
playground.
bunch of packets, and it's a better climate, but a bunch of packets, in either case, I think the solution isn't always the move or the change as much as it is how are the parents stepping up to cover that. That's the hack.
I see.
That's the hack in my mind, is and that's what the book's about, because it's raise your own kid, meaning, whatever your kid's experiencing at the school site, what's their experience at home? How are you stepping into that? How are you helping them? So
that's the bigger factor.
I think that's the bigger factor. It's a bigger hack, because you can find a kid at just about any school that does super well and just totally thrives. And,
not just private schools.
And I bet most of the time you'll find that their home environment is something that really brought that on.
Sure.
Maybe more so than the school.
Right.
And so I think that's what's important, and that sometimes gets missed because we're always talking about we need to, remake education. We need to, it's totally being, every few years, education is being totally reformed.
Right. You've seen several waves.
Yeah, waves of different emphasis and different ways.
We figured it out. We've got it.
And this was long enough that it comes back around the same. Oh yeah, this is the stuff we were doing in '94. Same stuff.
Made a big loop.
It's back. It made a big loop.
Uh-huh.
So, at some point, we got to say, well, it's not about the school system.
There's other factors.
Because if we're not reforming what's going on in the home, what's going on in the school is just compensating for what's going on in the home.
Right.
So it used to be, when I was a little kid, you went to school and, you had to totally toe the line or you could get hit with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
And they took the stick away. And so the parents are the only ones with the stick. And they took the stick away from the parents. And the kids became more and more unruly.
Yeah.
And we blamed the school, or we blamed the home, or we blame both.
Yeah.
The point is, how we approach our parenting is going to affect how our kids do in school.
Mm-hmm.
And if we aren't attentive to how they are with their education at home, and this is what your Nana used to say is, how's it going with your studies?
Right.
And you'd look at her cross-eyed, like, what do you mean, my studies? You mean, do I like my school?
Right.
Oh, I like my school. My friends are there, and I have a good time.
Right.
But no, that's not what she's at. How's it going with your studies? Which meant you should be learning stuff, and you should be getting better at things and improving. And your parents are a factor in that, and your discipline and your approach is a part of that. But she didn't ask you if you liked your teacher.
Yeah,
she
that's
didn't ask you
different.
if you liked your school, or if you liked your class.
Sure.
Didn't matter. How's it going with your studies?
And she asked you that as a kid, too.
Yeah.
But she passed that on.
And I'd say, fine.
Shortest possible answer.
Yeah.
Get that over with. Probably last question before we wrap up.
Okay.
I guess Virgil was just asking. I don't actually know. Okay, maybe a couple more questions. Are there a lot of private schools in the U.S.? I don't really know.
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Like,
I'm sure
do you know percentage-wise?
every community. No, I wouldn't know. But every community I've ever been near that has more than 3,000 or 4,000 people probably have a private option.
Okay.
Maybe religious or other. Definitely. And then, of course, homeschooling is always allowed. It's always something parents are allowed to do. Some schools provide resources so you can get curriculum and everything for free from your school by registering as a homeschool family.
Right.
And then so there's that option, and then there's of course private and charter options in most every community. A real small town,
probably
maybe
less
not.
likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying it's not very common in Belgium, but it might not be. It might just be because you're not looking. It could be.
It can be there. I'm not sure, and there's some countries that I'm sure the laws are very strict.
Sure.
On what you offer, but I would imagine in Belgium, you might see Catholic schools and things like that, pretty commonly. But yeah,
well, I wanted to publicly thank you reading the chapter about the year you guys homeschooled me in the 5th grade. From my perspective as a kid, I was just like, this teacher's not very good, or I don't really care for this approach to teaching. And from my end, I just heard, okay, well, Mom will be your teacher this year. And I said, okay, great. And on this end, I was like, oh man, I was taking Mom out of work, and you were the sole working parent that year, and you guys had to make it swing financially. And like, I really appreciate that you guys put that much value into not just losing money by her not working, but also putting money towards retirement and taking trips. That was a very engaged year.
It was a bigger deal.
Bigger deal.
Then we
could have. Then we
could have expressed that. Yeah.
When you're a little kid, you're just like, oh, Mom's at home. Whatever.
Well, and it makes me think of, because I'm pretty quick to tell people, if you don't like your school option, maybe you should try homeschooling. That is a big deal. That is, count the cost of anything.
Sure.
But like, if, let's say you're a realtor or something and you want to go to the next level with your real estate deals, which means you need to be busier and busier, and you have school-age kids, you're going to have to make a call there.
Right.
And a lot of parents experience this with COVID, where suddenly, whether they could or not, their kids were home. Mm-hmm. And they were counting on the public schools often to just cover it, just do school.
Yeah.
So we were trying to do school from Chromebooks, which I think were just terrible.
So much.
It was just a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Kids sitting in front of a screen for 5 and 6 hours, I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. I would tell kids, no, here's what you're working on. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah,
and I'd cut it off. Other teachers are going, hey, how come you're not online with your kids? It's like, we've been online for 3 hours. That's enough.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Yeah, but school goes from this time to this time. Yeah, not when it's on screen, it doesn't. And they need to work on their own. Their parents need to involve themselves with it and deal with it. And it's a crisis.
Yeah.
We had to deal with it. But
what a way
I literally had kids with screens in a closet because they wanted to be able to talk and interact and do things, and they couldn't disturb, or their brother was a baby in the other room crying.
Sure.
So they were in a closet with a screen open,
yeah,
and having school there. And that's not.
There was no way to learn.
So I sent home baggies of toothpicks and glue, and we built bridges. Or I sent home baggies of Legos, and we built a Barbie zip line.
Wow.
So go get your old Barbie, or if you don't have one in the house, talk to your sister, or get an old stuffed animal or an action figure.
Do you ride around on the motorcycle? Drop stuff off?
Sometimes, yeah. Your
That's
mom and I
cool
would get on the
teacher.
motorcycle and ride around with baggies full of things for the kids and hand them out around town. So
how many people can say that?
It was
My
fun.
teacher rode up on his
I'm
motorcycle.
like a biker teacher.
And gave us zipline material for our old Barbies.
Bad boy charter school biker teacher. That's my handle.
Mike said, "Lucky Drew, all I got was quit playing video games, you dunce." I got that a few times too.
We called it summer zombies.
Right. I was telling you earlier today, that was a value that you've left a lasting impact in me. I don't want to be a summer zombie. If there's time off, I want to do something productive. Or,
there you go. I gave you a couple of books to read.
Right.
I tried to pick good ones. And I read them too.
Mm-hmm. So you knew they were good.
Novels. Yeah.
Yeah, but I appreciate that learning experience, and I'm very grateful that I had you guys, and that's why I'm happy to bring this up and let other people know about it, because if anyone else could have a childhood like mine, or at least have engaged parents like mine, I'd be happy to know that other people are aware. It's a lot of what you've told in here is stories I've heard over the years, but I've never had them strung together with a message. I think it really sums up a lot of your career, and it's one thing to just have a lot of talks like this. When we'd go on bike rides, you talk about school and parenting, or we'd meet up even as I've moved out now and just caught up over dinner. But I think it's really cool that you just sat down and was like, I'm gonna make this in a packageable, digestible.
I hope
format.
I hope it's approachable for people.
Yeah.
I think they can take it and go, oh, there's something I really got from that. It's not
technical.
It's an easy read. You use very
lots of stories.
terms.
I try stories I know will
it's
hold
not
your interest.
Big extravagant vocabulary or things only certain people
I
can
don't
understand.
have those big words.
It's been a nice way to wrap up the workday a lot. Me and Louise have been. We wanted to read it. We both wanted to read it, and we were like, "Well, I could read it and then give you the book, or we could I'll read it out loud." Yeah. So after work or maybe after a little bit of downtime, whether it's too much TV, we're like, well, let's just turn off the TV a bit earlier than usual, and I'll just read a chapter. And
wow,
that's how we've been going through it. So
that's awesome.
It's been fun, especially
warms my heart to hear my kids.
It's been lovely whenever we're like, that's me. I know that part.
I remember that. Was that what was going on?
Or you would tell a story, and I'd be like, did that happen? I don't remember, but I trust your memory.
I think he made that up for the sake of the book.
I think you were over the slight correction I'll make.
Okay.
I think you were rounding up a bit on what I charged seniors for their video projects.
Oh, really?
I don't think it was $100 a project. There were some I definitely
in
did
today's
for free.
dollars, maybe.
Maybe adjusted for inflation. It was $1,000 adjusted for inflation.
All I know is we had a freshman in high school making videos for seniors.
Yes.
So that they could get an A in AP
right.
English.
Several
a class
of which
you didn't even take.
No, I never took that class, but I helped
But you made several A-grade projects for that.
The general message was true. I remember being paid. I don't think it was $100, but maybe it was. And
we'll try to get seniors to pay up.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible you were right, and I just spent it all that day on a new Apple product and was like, I didn't get paid.
I can get an iPod now.
I can afford this new iPad. Daniel said the most important thing is doing something you love and having the support around you. Your dad has raised you well, Drew. He's a great guy and very knowledgeable.
Thank you.
Daniel's out in the United Kingdom. He's been watching for many years.
What time is it there, Daniel?
Yeah, you guys should go to bed soon.
It's just like 8 hours, isn't it? It was like 2 in the morning, I think. Daniel.
Yeah, everyone else is
1 in the morning
at school or.
He probably has to go to work in a little bit.
Oh, I hope not.
Sorry, Daniel, but thank you for the compliment.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Ross and Mike are having their own conversations, so they're talking back and forth. And you guys could have met. You were visiting here, like
I don't allow chatting during class.
Yeah, class is in session. Chat.
Raise your hand if you have something to say.
Oh, Daniel said it's nearly midnight.
I was going to say.
And Randy was like, "You go to bed." Well, sorry Scott just tuned in, but I think we got to get going. People said, yes, sir. Sorry, teacher. Everyone's apologizing.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we could make the live stream work. All brought to you over Starlink, by the way.
Oh.
So all this was sent to space. So there was a few frame drops I think I could see, but we look okay for the most part.
Yeah.
But thank you all for tuning in. If you want more Toby and Drew streams. I can't say Toby. I don't know why I said that.
That's right.
That's just your name in my contacts list. I probably should.
That's all right.
But thank you for tuning in. Sorry I forgot to add the link. I'll add it right after we end the stream. The link to this book.
Oh, just go on Amazon. There's Raise Your Own D Kids, which is the wrong word. And then
you're looking
Raise
for
Your
Dang.
Dang. Kids.
He's Dang.
Somebody's already tried to encroach on my.
We gotta. Yeah, I think last I checked, I was able to just search that, and I believe it was like the second result.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. Ebook or not hard, soft cover, paperback.
Cover. Third result. You're the first genuine result. So when I searched Raise Your Own Dang Kids, there's 2 sponsored listings.
Oh.
So they're paying money to go ahead of you, but you're the first one that's not sponsored. You could just look for the Legos. But yeah, it's easy to find. So. We appreciate you all for tuning in. Thanks for the questions. It's some really deep ones.
That's good.
And we'll catch you next time. Take care, all. Bye-bye. I gotta run out and grab